Such a small sign for such a little stream, but it is in fact the Mississippi River. The majority of us think of the Mississippi River as this giant churning body of water that has barges and riverboats on it and is usually just something you can't miss. But in the case of Itasca State Park, this is the humble beginning of the Mississippi River. Hey everybody, this is Ben with Arkansas Outdoors, and I just wanted to share with you this little trip I took to Itasca State Park this summer. My first morning there, I woke up pretty early so I could get to the headwaters at sunrise, hoping I'd be the only one there. And there were some largemouth bass, but it was a beautiful and serene experience because normally this place is pretty busy, with a lot of people visiting the start of the mighty Mississippi and wading and splashing in the river. A neat thing I noticed about this park is the families that come and visit. It usually isn't just parents and children, but grandparents and aunts and uncles and the whole extended family that, much like mine, have been coming here for generations. Not only is this a beautiful and wild park, it is very rich in history of the early days of Minnesota. So this was pretty cool. I don't know if you've ever had the experience of seeing hummingbirds up close, but I was fortunate enough to be able to do this from about 3 feet away. A guy at the park asked me if I had seen the hummingbirds, and I had not, so he told me to go up to Douglas Lodge, and he told me that due to the smoke from the wildfires in Canada, there was a lot larger population of hummingbirds in the park this year. And this is just what I have in the frame here. There's lots of other hummingbirds up and around on the other feeders, sitting in the trees briefly before they come back down to eat again. It wasn't just what you see here, believe it or not. I've never seen this many hummingbirds before. It's pretty wild. I'm used to maybe one or two being there for a split second and then zooming away. This was a really cool experience. Now, this isn't the only up-close encounter with wildlife. If you go to pretty much any body of water within the park, you're going to find a lot of sunfish or sea turtles just hanging out. This is Elk Lake. This is kind of in the middle of the Wilderness Drive, and it has a pretty decent population of muskie that are above average, which makes it a pretty cool place to fish. Speaking of Wilderness Drive, that is where I am right here. As you can see, it is a one-way, single lane with a little bike lane on the side. It has a really slow speed limit, and my footage is cranked up here because otherwise we'd be sitting here for about 30 minutes watching the Wilderness Drive. Not that there's a problem with that, but you kind of get a good taste for it here. I apologize the fog on my windshield. Believe it or not, it was very humid and hot when I was in Itasca. It was upper 80s, high humidity, and no wind. Kind of uncharacteristic of the North Woods. So naturally, hopping in the car and cranking up the AC was a nice little break from the heat. Depending on what time of year you visit the park, or what time of day even, you can still expect to see a decent amount of wildlife on this drive. One morning I did see a nice 8-point whitetail buck with the velvety antlers. And later in the evening in this drive, I did encounter a pretty cool barred owl, and I got some pictures. That didn't turn out. My advice to anyone trying to witness some wildlife is get on the water. This is the best video I could get of a loon. Pretty far away though. One of the last evenings I was at the park, I brought my kayak down to the boat launch below Douglas Lodge. Just try to drift around and paddle on this beautiful evening on the lake with the pine trees. It was just such a calm and beautiful night with a light breeze coming across Lake Itasca. My hope was to maybe see or hear a loon on the water, and I lucked out. Truly one of the best sounds ever. I stayed in one of these cabins right here to the right of Douglas Lodge that overlooked the lake. There's nothing fancy and you have to cook outside, but they sure were nice. This is Douglas Lodge, and this is where I filmed the hummingbirds. You can rent a room here, much like a hotel. These are the steps leading up to it. I don't know why I didn't film over from the top, but that is the old, no longer in commission tour boat that I did ride on as a kid. And this is the dock at the foot of the steps that leads out onto the lake. It's pretty much set up for fishing, but it's a great place to just sit, especially in the evenings. I came down here in hopes to see some of the giant snapping turtles everyone was telling me about, But on my 3 or 4 times down here, they were never around. I guess they were pretty large, and this dock sits decently low to the water, so it would have been cool to get footage of them. But man, it is just so beautiful on the lake, all the pine trees. You got your wild rice and lily pads, cattails, everything. The cabins we stayed in are just to the right here, pretty much in the trees and right about here. Can't really see them, but you can kind of see the lake from them. There's another loon. Now there are a ton of trails on the park. This one in particular wasn't horribly long, but on the way you came across a little marsh, and at the end of the trail there was a bench and this beautiful wetlands with a small lake. And you can't see it, but there are 2 swans out there. On the way up to the fire tower, you come to this little path and a sign saying Allen Lake. So I followed the little path, and this is what I saw. Not too spectacular. It's kind of low and marshy, but it looks a lot cooler from the fire tower. And directly across from it is this small lake, or pond, whatever you want to call it, but still equally as cool. And then one of the really cool things is the 100-foot tall fire tower right here. Here's the view from the top. It happened to be raining because the one morning I went to check it out, it was right after a thunderstorm had rolled through. I hurried up there. I know the audio in the background is going to sound pretty loud, but that's because it was extremely windy up here. Almost unsafe to be up there maybe, but boy, it was such a cool experience, it was worth it. Not a big fan of heights, so the climb up with the wind was definitely a little unnerving. Like I said, it was worth it. You can see the clouds moving right past us. There's Allen Lake with the view from the fire tower right there. Just incredible. The sun hasn't been up horribly long at this point. And then of course I had to come back a day later when it had cleared off. Equally as beautiful. But the view is incredible. And I don't know if it's the case everywhere that you get the opportunity to climb a fire tower, but in my opinion this is pretty unique because I haven't been to a lot of state parks that let you go in the fire towers. Now this is Mary Lake. It is a short distance from Douglas Lodge, and it is named after Mary Gibbs, a pretty incredible lady who was instrumental in keeping the park this beautiful. If you want to learn more about her, don't even go on the internet, go learn about her at the park. Thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe for more. See ya.